You are listening to the Gluten-Free Psychiatry Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Daniel Williams, and today we will be talking about a substance that accumulates in the body called PFAS, Polyfluoroalkyl Substances. And it's in the news that these substances are accumulated in the environment, in our food and water supply. It's on military bases real heavily. Tap water, in addition to fluoride, has polyfluoral, another fluoride in these alkyl substances. So in my view, what little knowledge of organic chemistry 1 and 2 I had from college, fluoride in the water would keep PFAS stable. So filtering both of these out is going to be better for your neurons. So this is episode 2. It's the fall of Rome all over again. What I mean is that in Rome, they said that a major part of the downfall of that institution was lead in the water supply when they did the plumbing. That's what I'm referring to. And it's not the only problem they had. But what if they had had a community-based research group? Folks, now we have available tests where you can test your own environment, your own home, and water supplies at work and such. And I've done some of this research, and I'm going to share it with you now. But today's story is more about what I noticed when I worked in a psychiatric urgent care in Springfield, Missouri. For over a year, I was there, and we noticed, and it was commonly talked about, how everybody seemed to have high cholesterol, low vitamin D, and many higher cases of thyroid disease than we would expect, especially subclinical hypothyroidism. And these were otherwise very normal people, but we had a same-day access psych center that allowed us to do same-day ADHD testing, where across the street at the major referral network, it took them over a year to schedule people for that, and 2 years for autism for adult screening. So it's an underserved area in many ways in terms of access to healthcare services. So in other words, this was a group of people coming in for ADHD. So they were noticing problems with their executive function in their brain, focus, memory, attention, such. And they just were randomly screened, basically. Most of them didn't go to primary care doctors. At least 80% of these people that fit the pattern had no other medical problems whatsoever, except maybe the cholesterol was being treated with a statin, maybe the vitamin D was being addressed, or the thyroid disease was having a supplement added. That was the only medical problems they had, and it was just common observation. So what I did was I did my own little research study there. And in the middle of a busy psychiatric, emergency room, basically, urgent care, where I supervised several people, 4 locations, and incidentally was conducting a felony investigation on insurance fraud at the same time I was doing this research study. So it was just a snapshot of a busy lifestyle at that time that I had. And it kind of gave me an idea that it wasn't just a simple observation, it was really true. So I'm going to go over the data with you and read some of this report. The globe has become polluted to such an extent that the industrial contaminants can be found in the air, soil, water, and food supplies. Many contaminants can be inhaled or absorbed through the skin, such as PFOS. Polyfluoroalkyl substances represent 15,000 different variations of chemical compounds with known health effects, including abnormal laboratory tests, liver enzymes, and cholesterol. And I've got links throughout my blog. It's old school with elegant, clean links. It's not an annoying, overwhelming website. I hope you'll check out the show notes if any of this interests you. But the known health effects are things like small changes in infant birth weight, changes in cholesterol and liver enzyme levels, changes in the immune system in response to certain vaccines, increased risk of preeclampsia or high blood pressure in pregnant women, increased risk of certain cancers like kidney and testicular. So if you have the combination, that's where this is going, potentially, of high cholesterol, low vitamin D, plus or minus a thyroid dysfunction, you may want to get your blood tested for PFAS. It could be causing all this. And if it is and it's high and you're in the higher category like I am, I'm the moderate level, then you may want a urinalysis to go with your annual blood work to make sure there's no red blood cells coming through there because you got renal cell, and make sure to check your testicles, you see. So there's some actions we can take based on what's in the news today and what you can do if you have a community-based research group. So So I am tantalizing you with maybe a future group that will start up to help each other out to detox and figure out how to address this overwhelming amount of information coming out about the contaminants in our food and water supply. Just crazy. So what methods did I use? Basically chart reviews for patients that were coming into the psych care. And when I started the research study, I just did a consecutive, non-biased, didn't matter the age, gender, or diagnosis, look at how many people had abnormal TSHs, what were their TSHs, their thyroid studies, which was the T4, the T3, their vitamin D level, and then a lipid panel that included total cholesterol, triglycerides, HDL, the calculated VLDL, and the calculated LDL according to NIH guidelines. All right, so here's the results. 26 patients were included in the study. The age ranged from 8 up to 68. 38% of the patients were male. 62% were female, which is typical in outpatient psychiatric practice. Out of 9 total lab tests, 7 labs were above the expected 5% outliers of the reference range. I've got a table 1 here. It shows you all these. And I've highlighted the abnormals that are above what you would expect in a normal, otherwise healthy population. See, all these lab tests are based on a bell curve, where at the extremes of both ends of the bell curve, they artificially cut off to the top 2.5% and the bottom 2.5%, such that 95% of normal people in that particular population should have lab studies that fall within that range, which means 2.5% should be abnormal high, according to your number. That's okay to have 2.5% high and 2.5% low, because you haven't accounted for everybody in your bell curve. We set this artificial cutoff to figure out outliers and extremes. So what should have been these normal people with ADHD, and they should have had normal labs, turned out to be a really high number of abnormal labs. So the results were that over 73% of patients had elevated calculated LDL. 46% had abnormal total cholesterol, 38 had low vitamin D, and 30 had abnormal TSH values. It starts dropping down from there as you go to 19% for HDL, 15% for triglycerides. And the closest to normal was the 7% of the T3, one of the thyroid values. But again, could all this be related? Could it be related to the bioaccumulation of a neurotoxin in your body? And the reason that the media calls PFAS forever chemicals is because they stick around in the body. The old ones from 20, 30 years ago, PFOS with 8 fluorides, that one sticks around in the body for 28 years and it's outlawed, but it's been creeping out there, and they've got Gen X new stuff that does the same thing. There are other entire categories that we haven't even studied yet. So bear with us and stick around. You may want to clean your brain like I am. I'm finalizing a detox protocol now. So a discussion. Bioaccumulation of the pollutants is known to cause endocrine disruption. Early detection of bioaccumulation is important for medical surveillance efforts to understand the scope of the problem, further identify at-risk populations, and contribute to reducing the current cancer epidemic. So, for example, there's a ton of ads right now if you've been on military bases, and I have 16 years of military service, maybe about 10 of that on bases, actually, drinking their water. So that's why my level is in the moderate risk range, and I'll be covered in a future episode. So this particular study is the first ever to show that, there might be regular blood level tests that you're getting with your primary care. If they fit this pattern, high cholesterol, low vitamin D, you might want to get your PFOS checked. So check that out, because this may be that we are drinking the water like in the old Roman Empire, and everyone's getting dumber and dumber. The neurotoxins killing us and causing things like autism spectrum, ADHD, impulsive behaviors, addictions, anger problems, intermittent explosive disorder, for example, worsened anxiety, PTSD, nightmares, adrenaline responses, decreased ability to buffer those, and adrenal fatigue, which would be just chronic fatigue, headaches. And if you add that to a bad diet, good luck getting better. So my private practice, clearly I'm looking at this stuff. And in future episode, I'll talk about what it takes for a parent to get ADHD treatment through my clinic, because it's a pretty high standard in terms of nutritional access to radioactive EMF waves and radio frequency waves on cell phones, devices, and the blue light screens. I mean, we need to make sense of what we're doing. So think twice about it, get some blood tests. And if you would like to know more, visit mindshiftcare.com. I'm hoping that you will join our Clean My Brain initiative. You can learn more about advancing detox science for cognitive health, where all 3 appointment types get instant access to the MindShift Detox Lab order set. So whether you have PFAS or BPA, parabens, glyphosate, fluoride, botulinum toxin from your root canal, and heavy metals, aluminum, arsenic, cadmium, chromium, lead, and mercury. So in the next episode, we'll talk about the fact that PFAS does come out during ionic foot baths. That research, which is also original like this episode, will be out soon. So we'll see you then on episode 3. Until then, stay safe, drink clean water, and word to the wise, buy really good water filters that can pull out fluoride.